Hey guys, today I'm going to walk through a LinearOpMode class. So this is writing your own program for your robot and exactly what's happening. All right, let's jump in. So let's jump in to the team code folder and then Java and then org.firstinspires.ftc.teamcode. So that's going to be the folder where all of your guys' code is actually going to be, and it's just going to be a bunch of JavaScript classes. So we're going to go new, right-click, new, JavaScript class, and then I'm going to name mine example, but you can name yours whatever you'd like. And I would recommend naming it based on what the actual code is going to do. So if it's an autonomous program, name it something with autonomous, right? Maybe red autonomous. Okay, so we have our basic class here, and we have a package that is imported, which is just some of FTC's actual code. So we're going to need to add in a class modifier, first of all. So this is teleop. And you can see when I typed in @te, it auto-filled pretty much everything, and then you can press return. So teleop has two variables you can pass in. One is name and one is group. You see those pop up. The name is really important because the name is actually what's going to show up on the phone when you're trying to run a program. So I would recommend naming this as descriptively as you can, but also you want to keep it short too. So I'm going to name mine example. And then you can add a group in here. This just groups different programs together. I don't think it's really necessary. You can type in something like defaults or whatever you'd like. If you just leave it out, that's completely fine as well. Okay, so we've imported teleop here, created teleop class modifier, and then we need to extend this class. So you use the extends keyword, and then we are going to use the LinearOpMode. So you can see that when you added in the LinearOpMode, it automatically imported some more code, and that's going to keep happening because there's a lot of different code imports depending on what type of stuff you're adding in. So there's code for motors and code for servos, code for the general program, LinearOpMode. There's all types of little snippets of code that will be imported as you use more components, right? So that's the way it works. It's much more efficient to just import little pieces instead of importing the entire thing, right? Okay, so you can see that we still have a red line here, and the reason for that is because this extension, or when you extend the LinearOpMode, it expects or requires you to have a certain function actually inside of this class. And that function is going to be run opmode. So you see, I could just literally type run and then started typing op, and it auto completed, right? And you press return to auto complete it. So you have this run opmode here, and that is a required function that you need. And you can see that the red line is now gone. Should be able to leave this the way it is. I think you can remove this throws exception for now. I don't think that's necessary. So, because this is just a concept. So, what happens in this runoutMode function? Why is this runoutMode function actually required? The reason why is because due to us adding this class modifier and extending the LinearOpMode, we're saying, hey, this program here is a program for the robot to run, right? So what this function does is this is the function that runs, or the program that runs, the code that runs when the robot is initialized, right? So when you press on a program and you press init, this function starts running, right? So there's a couple things you're going to want to do in each one of your programs. And first thing is you're going to want to do stuff like connect motors, or connect motors and servos and sensors, and whatever else Maybe if you have LEDs or something, you can connect them here. So this is, we're going to run one-time code. One-time code here. And then we're going to run some looping code. Oops. Looping code here. So why do we need one-time code as well as looping code? Well, the one-time code is super useful for connecting variables to components, right? So for example, maybe you have a motor on your robot, but the program here actually needs to be able to control that motor, right? So, and right off the bat, the program isn't going to know exactly what that component is. So when you first start a program, you're going to have something in here that will connect that program to this motor so that it knows it's like a DC motor, or knows it's a servo, knows it's a sensor, right? And once it knows it, you don't really need to ever run that again, right? So that's the one-time code. The looping code, which FTC actually programmed something in here to help us out. So you can do a while, and then, what is it called? OpMode. So the looping code will go inside of this right here, this while loop. So a while loop just runs continuously until something isn't true. So in this case, the op mode is active. It's constantly checking your phone to see whether or not the program is actually running. And if it is, it returns true. It says, yes, it is running. It is running. And then as soon as you press stop or the program stops, it then changes to false, and then it would jump out of this loop. So it just keeps looping through whatever code is in here until the op mode is active, is actually false. So this is just a function that First Robotics is providing us with. Okay, so the type of code that you're going to want in the looping function here, or the while loop, is going to be stuff like reading sensor values, reading values off of your controller, and then updating what your robot should do based off of those changes, right? So if you just ran one-time values, or if you just ran the code one time to check like what your which controller buttons were pressed, then technically you would only ever be able to have that value read once, and then your robot could only do whatever it was supposed to do based off that one value. So, you know, if you had the joystick or whatever, and you had it at full power, and you read it once, and then you told the robot to go or drive based off of whatever that joystick was at, it would just drive at full power until the program ended, right? That's why this while loop is so useful, is because what's really happening in real life is, and what you need to do is constantly check the joystick for what value it's at, and then change the motor's power depending on that, right? Because at some point you're going to want to have max power, and you're going to want to have no power sometimes, and you're going to want to have reverse at other times. So you have to read that joystick constantly. Maybe, I don't know how frequently this while loop is actually looping, but it's probably 60 to 100 times per second. So it's making looping incredibly fast. And then just depending on the values that it reads off of your controller or sensors, it'll then set the motor power to some value, right? So that would be 1 or 0 or whatever. Okay, so that's the main reason you want to have a loop function in there, or the looping. So another thing is, this is one-time code, right? And this runs when the program is initialized. So as soon as you press init, then this starts running. But when you press init, we don't actually want it to immediately jump into the looping function. And the reason why is because if you press initialize, and so like you have your robot on the field, right? And you press initialize, and then one of your teammates accidentally hits a controller or key or something on your controller, and then the robot moves, all of a sudden you're gonna have to like restart that match, right? Because someone accidentally pressed something and now your robot has moved before the match actually began. So what you can do is you can add in a called wait for start function. So what this does is this says run the one-time initialization code, so connect all the motors and servos and sensors up, and then wait for the program to actually start. So that's when you press start on your phone. This is pretty much a necessity when it comes to your programs, because you don't want to accidentally press something and get a match disqualified or have to rerun it. So later on we'll go into exactly how to initialize or connect all this stuff up and what should be running in the while loop, and I'll show you examples of that. But for now, this kind of gives you an overview of what's required for the LinearOpMode. You're going to connect a bunch of stuff, you're going to wait for the program to actually start, and then once it starts, you're going to loop through code, and then once the program is stopped, it'll jump out of this loop, and then it will end the program. All right? Okay. All right, hopefully this was useful for you guys. I will have some more videos up shortly, and remember to like and subscribe if you'd like more videos on how to program your robot. All right, bye guys.